Hello again, everyone. This is Randy, your saw machine man. What we're looking at is a beautiful Singer 1591. This is the workhorse from the late 40s, early 50s. Just an awesome machine, direct gear drive, 15 class system, has a reverse light, nice cast iron machine. Heavy as all get out, but a real nice machine. And I get these more often than not with motors having issues with the wiring in the back being melted, and I mean completely melted down to all you see is bare wires. Now this one came in with that situation, and I rewired the motor, and now of course these motors are pretty bulletproof. They're pretty awesome. They can take a pretty good hit with the meltdown and still come back. This is a very nice machine and well worth the expense to get it redone, because usually you're going to look around $250, $300 to get that motor rewired, but when you get done you have a machine that's well worth it. Now what really makes it interesting for these machines is that the instruction book shows you how to oil the daggone motor, and they shouldn't be saying oil the motor, they should be saying the gearbox, but they say lubricate. It says lubricate the motor. Lubricate the motor. Well, you're not lubricating the motor. That's what gets people confused, because it says to tilt the machine up and lubricate underneath, which is in fact the gearbox. And the gearbox is under here. And under here you have two places where you lubricate. Now these little caps come off, and these caps look confusing because people see the cap and they think, well, which cap is it? Because they lose their book and they lose their place and they get their grease. But see, these caps, if you look on top of the motor brush, you'll see it has the same daggone little cap right there as these down here, and it's very confusing. There's four of these caps, 1, 2, 3, and then one on the front. The worm gear action in the front, and you put the lubrication tube in there and you squeeze it. But what people do is they take this cap off, which is the top of the motor brush. You take this off. Underneath is a motor brush and the spring, same as underneath. There's one here and one here. So they take these off and they fill this up with grease. Oh my gosh, what a mess. So then they put the cap back on thinking they've lubricated their motor, and yes, they have indeed lubricated their motor, but they need to lubricate the gearbox, not the motor. So what happens is when they step on the gas to go, it starts spinning in here and it starts heating it up, and it melts that grease that they put on there, and that grease in turn runs down the wire that goes into the motor housing here in the back. And here in the back is a wire comes out and it goes down to the connector where your earthing goes in there for your three prongs, 1, 2, 3, and it will melt that all the way down. It'll melt the insulation completely off, and it turns into bare wires. And at that point, it's really dangerous because you step on it, it'll start a fire. So I usually get these after they've been sitting for years and years, and this cap comes apart, 2 screws, and inside there's 2 more screws that pulls the winding out. The armature's on the inside, and you have to take the motor brushes out. You have to clean all the goop and all the oil and all the nasty stuff inside, very clean. Then you have to take that motor brush out, probably replace it, or if it's in good shape like this one was, you can just clean it up, heat it up, burn the oil off of it and the grease, put it back in, and makes it as good as new. It has the original brushes. I don't think they used it much. I think what they did with this thing was they did that wrong-headed oiling maneuver, and that's what took this thing out of service. It's been a good machine for a long time for somebody, but at some point, someone oiled the motor. I tell people, whatever you do, don't oil the motor, because it'll almost always turn out poorly. So if you get one of these Singer 1591 instruction books, this was what we had before we had the internet. So if you wanted to take something apart, if you want to rebuild something, it's all right here with diagrams and step by step. It's a very good book if you can get one. They're available online. They're going to be $20, $30 now, especially in good shape like this one. But if you can get a book, make sure you understand what they're saying about oiling the motor. Don't oil the motor. Oil the gear, worm gear under here, the gearbox, 1, 2, not in the top, not in the back. But if you get one of these, it can be fixed because it's a good robust motor, and you can rewire it and it'll have a happy ending. Singer 1591.